look at the west side of the bracket here, the semi-final was definitely a much closer game than we saw it out east there. But it was definitely a cold one in Regina, and this definitely sets up another rare matchup here. As just like the Eastern semi-final, we got to go way back to when the last time these two teams played. So anyway, let's look at the west side of the bracket in the Western final on the road to the Under 6 Grey Cup in Edmonton. So who does the Calgary Stampeders draw here? That is the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They definitely grinded one out against the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and it was definitely a cool day. It was -10 flurries, but it definitely felt like -20 here. So the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are off to McMahon Stadium to take on the Calgary Stampeders on Sunday, November the 18th. That's a 2:30 p.m. kickoff Mountain Time. So how did we get there? Well, as I mentioned, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers beat the Saskatchewan Roughriders. It was 23-18. Definitely was a little closer than the Eastern semifinal. If you take a look at my Eastern final prediction or preview video and prediction, it was definitely no contest there. So how this game happened was that Matt Nichols, the quarterback for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, he was 16 for 22, 169 yards passing, threw for 1 touchdown. The big key in this game was Andrew Harris. He had 19 carries for 153 yards and 1 touchdown, especially in the fourth quarter where, Saskatchewan's D definitely held Winnipeg as long as they could. And then Drew Rolatarski for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers had a good receiving game, 5 catches, 68 yards, including 1 touchdown in the first half. And then Brandon Bridge, the quarterback for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, because Zach Collaros was injured and with his concussion, and actually he couldn't play, wasn't cleared to play, or they were protecting him and set him out. But Brandon Bridge only threw for 100 yards and ran for 86, which is show he can run, but he threw 1 costly interception in the first half that led to points off a turnover from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And this game also set up another controversy that the second last play of the game, Brandon Bridge got a big hit, and that's why now they're going to play another official to watch for headshots, and that's what the league answered back with. But let's look at the records here, shall we, between the two teams. And so the Calgary Stampeders, they were 13-5, finished first in the West. It was also the top record in the league, so that's why they were able to host the Western final here. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers were 10-8, finished third in the West. That's why they played on the road in Saskatchewan for the Western semifinal. And then at home, the Calgary Stampeders were tied with the BC Lions with the best home record at 7-2, while the Winnipeg Blue Bombers were 4-5 on the road. And then within the division, the Western division was definitely a lot tougher than the East, but the Calgary Stampeders actually were 5-5 against the West, while the Winnipeg Blue Bombers were 4-6 versus the West. And then with this being the Western final, just like the Eastern final, the winner of this game is off to the 106 Grey Cup just up the road here in Edmonton. So let's look at the season series here, shall we? And both teams played each other twice here. One at home and one on the road for Calgary and Winnipeg, depending which perspective you look at. So if you go back to week 11 here, the Calgary Stampeders mostly dominated the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, 39-26. This happened just before Labor Day, and this is when Calgary was at its peak, and Winnipeg was slipping a little. Some were looking at Winnipeg might have had the talent to take on the top team in the league, but it didn't look like this day because Bo Levi Mitchell threw 452 yards passing, and before the Labor Day rematch game, that was his career high, followed by Kamar Jordan, who received 249 yards receiving, which that set a new club record for the most receiving yards in the game. And Jagger Davis, he had 2 interceptions, so 3 guys definitely stood out for the Calgary Stampeders this game. The other side of the ball, I mean, Matt Nichols had a rough game. He still threw for 258 yards passing, but he threw for 2 interceptions, both to Jagger Davis. So that Calgary took the first game in Week 11. Now if you go to Week 20 here, this is where Winnipeg was surging after they looked like they were in their lull there around Labor Day, and then Calgary had a rough October, but they were showing signs of getting out of that funk. But Week 20, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers got their revenge by winning 29-21 in Winnipeg here. What stood out for this game is that Matt Nichols threw for 358 yards passing as part of his hot play up to this point. Andrew Harris grounded it down with 86 yards on the ground, plus 44 yards receiving, as that's what makes Andrew Harris unique, is not only he's a big beast on the ground, but he can also be a threat to receive as well. And you can always legitimately look at him at the start of the year as being potentially first guy that can be 1,000, both 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving, but that's definitely a tough task to do. But and then Darvin Adams for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers had 126 yards receiving to lead the way. I'm going to say the Calgary Stampeders looked flat in this game. Took some penalties, but they looked better than they did in the previous games in October here, which you can actually look at my Calgary Stampeders this month video when I recapped October there, and where I had time to break down more of the games here. And then, Winnipeg also had something to play for this game, because with that win, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers eliminated the Edmonton Eskimos from playoff competition. So Winnipeg definitely had some motivation there, and it was their last home game of the season. So anyway, if we go back to playoff history here, this is actually a pretty rare matchup that the Calgary Stampeders taking on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, because much of the history of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers is that they spent some time in the East when Ottawa or Montreal wasn't in the league, so they moved Winnipeg out to the East to balance out the divisions. And I look at Winnipeg as a Western team, and in fact, the longitudinal center of Canada is still east of Winnipeg, about a half an hour drive. So Winnipeg rightfully belongs in the West, but this is definitely a rare playoff history, because the last time the Calgary Stampeders played the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the playoffs, you got to go all the way back to 2001 in the 89th Grey Cup in Montreal. Actually, the underdog Calgary Stampeders beat the Winnipeg Blue Bombers 27-19 there. Calgary was actually 8-10 that year, and Winnipeg was 14-4, so that was definitely one of the biggest Grey Cup upsets of all time. And then before that, if you go all the way back to 1992, the 80th Grey Cup in Toronto, the Calgary Stampeders once again won that one with Doug Flutie 24-10. But if you want to go further back, the last time that Calgary and Winnipeg played each other, not in a Grey Cup, both in the Western Division, you have to go back to the 1982 Western semifinal, when I was 5 months old at the time. And the Winnipeg Blue Bombers hosted that game, and they beat the Calgary Stampeders 24-3. I actually saw this tidbit that actually the last time Winnipeg and Calgary played each other in the Western Final in Calgary was in 1945, the first year that the Calgary Stampeders were a franchise, and before the modern era of the CFL, which I believe with 1953 is when they considered that the first year of the modern era of the CFL. I believe it's 1953. But anyway, that's a little playoff history here, so it's another rare matchup here, kind of like the Prairie Bowl last week in the Western semifinal. So now this is where we get to the part of the video where I break down the matchup, each facet of the game. I like the breakdown that the CFL.ca gives, but I give my conclusions too, because I don't agree with it all, but it gives you a taste and an idea of what to expect in this series, and what to expect in this playoff game, and who's got the edge and who doesn't, and who could surprise here. So anyway, let's start with quarterback here. You got Bo Levi Mitchell for Calgary versus Matt Nichols with Winnipeg. This is definitely, Calgary definitely has the edge here with Bo Levi Mitchell, because he's constantly been one of the top passing quarterbacks in the league. He's actually the West nominee for the most outstanding player. He threw for over 5,100 yards, led the league in 35 touchdowns with receivers being in and out with injuries and that. And Bo Levi Mitchell has one of the highest winning percentages of all time right now. So, which actually is better than Winnipeg Blue Bomber legend Kenny Payne. So, this is definitely, Calgary has the edge there. When it comes to running back, you got Don Jackson for the Calgary Stampeders versus Andrew Harris of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and this definitely, Winnipeg definitely by far has the edge in that. I mean, Don Jackson was fourth in the league in rushing, but he didn't hit 1,000 yards. But Andrew Harris led the league in rushing, and as he proved last week in Regina, that if you give him the ball and he's on, especially in the fourth quarter where it's cold or, defenses are tired or the offense needs a break, and keep it on the ground around the clock, this is where Andrew Harris is at his best. So Winnipeg definitely has the edge there. So when it comes to receivers here, I mean, Calgary has got hit hard in the receiving category basically since after Labor Day on. I mean, they might get Tavares Daniels back. Not sure about Eric Rogers. I mean, Chris Matthews, and it's been a nice pickup. And Markeith Ambles is definitely breaking out here. So there's definitely some question marks when it comes to receiving. Based over here, there's that we might definitely get Tavares Daniels back, and there's going to have to be some decisions made when it comes to who dresses in the Western Final. Well, Winnipeg, they have guys like Darvin Adams, Drew Wolikarski, and Weston Dressler here. So I give Winnipeg the edge here when it comes to receiving because they have less question marks than Calgary does. I mean, if Calgary had their healthy core of receivers, they would definitely have the advantage here, but that's not an option right now. So when it comes to the offensive line here, this is definitely an interesting matchup here. I mean, Calgary's had some injuries throughout the season, and then I'm going to say down the stretch here, they had some issues on the right tackle side, but they've allowed the fewest quarterback sacks in the league. While Winnipeg's units, they've been the healthiest and mostly intact for the whole season here. So I think based on that notion alone, I'm going to give Winnipeg the edge here when it comes to the offensive line here. So now let's look at the defensive side of the ball here. Calgary's definitely stacked. You got Micah Johnson with 14 sacks, Jagger Davis, Derek Wigan, just to name a few. Winnipeg counters with Jackson Jeffcoat and Chisnell Gapugo. But by far, Calgary definitely has the edge there in the defensive line. So when it comes to the linebackers, once again, Calgary stacked with guys like Alex Singleton, who led the league in tackles, Jameer Thurman, and you even have Jamar Wall in the Sam position. Well, Winnipeg still has some strong pieces like Adam Big Hill and Javon Santos Knox, but Santos Knox was not available in the Western semifinal. Haven't heard any word if he'll be available. Both players are banged up. Adam Big Hill played last week, but he didn't finish the game. He was out the last few minutes, but I hear he's going to play. I'm still going to give Calgary the edge here because we're definitely stacked with, Singleton, Thurman, with the tackle machines that they both are. So when it comes to defensive backs, I mean, we're stronger here. Calgary definitely is stronger with Emmanuel Davis and Trey Roberson. I mean, Winnipeg is definitely missing guys like Maurice Leggett, but Chandler Fenner, Anthony Gator, and Marcus Sales have definitely filled that void for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But I'm going to have to give Calgary the edge there. Now, when it comes to the return game, you got Terry Williams for the Calgary Stampeders. He definitely had 3 punt return touchdowns. Romar Morris, who was also an option, he's returned 1 for touchdown as well. And then Kevin Fogg is he's got some flashes in the pan throughout the season, but I'm going to give Calgary the edge here when it comes to the return game. So the last part of the special teams is the kicking game. Calgary has Rene Paredes for kicking field goals and Rob Maber for punting the ball, and he's definitely one of the top punters in the league for punting it, positional punting for field position. And then Justin Medlock, who's also pretty strong at both ends of the game, both facets in kicking and punting. So when it comes to the kicking game, I don't give anyone the edge here. I think both Calgary and Winnipeg, well, they've proven that they're pretty strong in that game. So I'm going to say if it comes down to a last-second field goal, I like their chances if I got Paredes or Medlock to kick it. So now this is the part of the video where it comes to this team will win if. So I'm going to say Calgary will win if Bo Levi Mitchell outpasses Matt Nichols here, because that was definitely apparent in the season series. I'm going to say if our defense, the Calgary defense, I'm a Stampeder fan, but I'm trying to, if the Calgary defense contains Winnipeg's offense altogether, including Andrew Harris, and over the years, Calgary has actually done a pretty good job on containing Andrew Harris, so I'm going to say that their defense has definitely lived up to what the defense has done all year. They should be able to win this game. And I'm going to say if they win the takeaway battle, which Calgary's definitely had their strengths there, if they capitalize on any turnovers and opportunities there, or if not, Calgary cashes it in. So Winnipeg will win if Matt Nichols continues his hot play. I'm not too sure what the exact number is, but he's definitely thrown well over 100 plus passes without an interception, and his touchdown to interceptions ratio has been, I think I saw it was at least 7-1 since October. Basically since the low point of after the back-to-back against Saskatchewan, Winnipeg has definitely responded and proven to be one of the top teams in the league. So you can still kind of throw away some records out the window when it comes to the regular season, but let's see if Matt Nichols continues his hot play here and make this a more interesting battle here. I'm going to go back to Andrew Harris here. How big of a game does Andrew Harris have, both rushing and receiving? If he can break out, I think the Winnipeg Blue Bombers definitely will have a shot here, especially if they win the time possession battle because of Andrew Harris, and that's what happened in the Western semifinal. And I'm going to say if Winnipeg wins the special teams battle, depending on if they get any returns or favorable field position, so that Matt Nichols doesn't have as long of a field to drive down. So let's looking at the forecast here. It's definitely looking like it's going to be a lot warmer in Calgary this week than it was in Regina last week. They're forecasting sunny and 4 degrees as of this recording, and a low of clear and -1. So definitely get rewarded with a little warmer weather with game. So I'm going to say it'll be around 1-2 degrees, around 2:30 Mountain, once the the sun starts setting on the the west side there. So it's still going to be a beautiful game for third week of November in this part of the country. I've personally been to some Western finals where I've had to bundle up, so I'll take this. So anyway, who do I think is going to win the Western final and make the road trip up to Edmonton for the 106th Grey Cup? I actually have the Calgary Stampeders with 60% confidence here. I think our defense for the Calgary Stampeders has been stacked all year and has been the best in the league, and so far proving the cliche that defense wins championships. So I think our defense and our offense, definitely that week off. I think the Stampeders needed that week off to shake off October and the funks that they've gone through in October. But the Calgary Stampeders can play to what they're capable of. I expect to see them win this game and head to the Grey Cup for the 3rd time in a row, which actually be the first time in franchise history they've gone to 3 straight Grey Cups. But after 2 close heartbreaks the last couple of years, this team should be hungry. But I think the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are just as hungry too, so I'm definitely looking forward to this matchup. But anyway, if you enjoy everything that I put on my YouTube channel, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and if you haven't watched the Eastern Final preview, you can check that out, who I think will be heading up to Edmonton from the east, and you know. I'll see you in the next video, and you know, if you're waiting until my Grey Cup review, I'll see you from my hotel room up in Edmonton when I'll be up in Edmonton for the 106th Grey Cup. So I'll see you in the next video.